So here's the video that has been highly anticipated. Here is the before to my client, and this is the transition that we will be doing today. This service took a little over 8 hours, so this is a long video. So get your popcorn, get comfortable. I hope you enjoy this. There were some bumps in the road, but ultimately everything worked out in the end. So I hope you like this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You guys can follow me over on Instagram at Christy@thecottage.
Hey guys, so I'm on my way to the beauty supply store right now, and if you guys follow my YouTube stories, then you already saw like part of this because I already uploaded there, or uploaded this part to that. Anyways, so I'm on my way to the beauty supply store, and the client that I'm going to be doing today is she's probably like a level 2, 3, and I've done her hair before, and she has very thick hair, and I'm actually really glad that she chopped her hair off, because what she wants done is even with shorter hair, is still gonna take all day. You know that kind of like the Kardashians, how they have that kind of caramely brown? I feel like that's really popular right now. So that's what she wants, just kind of that like kind of a cooler caramel brown tone. So last night I was literally falling asleep trying to think about how am I gonna go about tackling this service. Am I gonna like bleach out, like do a bleach and tone, or foil her hair and bleach it? Like just trying to think about how to go about the service. So like what toners to use, how light am I gonna lift her, all of this stuff. So I just thought I'd bring you along the way and kind of show you my thought process through trying to pick out what products to use, what toner to use, what developer to use. I was kind of debating about that last night because Schwarzkopf Blonde Me gets 9 levels of lift. I get a really good clean lift when I use that, but I don't know that I want to lift her to like as light as the Schwarzkopf will lift her, because I know it's going to sit for a while. So I might use like a lesser developer, like maybe 15 instead of 20. Or, you know, usually when I'm doing really dark hair, I'll take really thin, fine sections, but maybe I'll take thicker sections so that they don't lift as much. I just like all those things that make a difference. So anyways, I'm driving there, and I will kind of show you guys what I'm trying to figure out as I pick out color, whatnot. So yeah, I'll see you at the beauty supply store.
Okay, so I'm here at the beauty supply store, and I'm thinking that I definitely want to grab some level 7 and 8, because these are kind of like the natural. I think she's kind of wanting to be like right in here, but I think adding a level 7 for some depth will be good. So I'm gonna do some 7 and 8. And then because she's gonna lift so warm, I definitely need some cooler tones in there also. So I think I'm gonna grab some of the 7. I'll do a couple of these, 711 or 71. And we'll just start with that for now. And I know I have some other stuff at the salon too that I'll probably look through. Oh yeah, and I'm also almost out of bleach, so I need more. Okay, so I just got to the salon and I just talked to my client, and so basically what I would have to do for her service is go through and basically platinum card her whole head, leaving the roots out, and then let that process go through, and then bleach out her roots, let that process tone her hair, and then go back through and do some balayage pieces because she wants some areas where it's like actually more blonde than just caramel. And so I sat with her and I was talking to her about pricing or whatever, because I know pricing is a big thing with a stylist and not really knowing how much to charge for a service or even how to talk about it to your client. And so the way that I handled it was just, I sat down, I was like, look, so let's go over pricing because this is a really big service and I don't want there to be any like surprises at the end where, you know, it's $800 or something like that. So I just asked her like, you know, do you have a price range that you want to stay within or whatever? And she said, well, because I cut all my hair off, like, isn't it going to be less expensive than last time? Which I think her last service was like $500 because her hair was very, very long. And we did a very heavy full foliage to like a really pretty caramel color. And I told her that even though you chopped your hair off, we're actually going to be using more bleach than last time because last time we did a balayage, but this time we're actually going to be bleaching out your whole head and probably using way more bleach than we did last time because we have to keep reapplying potentially and then go back through and hit your roots. And we're bleaching out everything versus just balayaging some of the hair. And so I told her, even though it's shorter, they're still two completely different services and each one, you know, they're expensive for different reasons. So I told her, you know, I don't know how much it's going to be, but it's still probably going to be, if we do the full thing, if we bleach out all of your head and then tone, but then we have to go through and do the balayage pieces to get some brighter blonde and then tone a second time, I would say that would probably be around like $750 for how long of a service and all those stuff that we're going to have to do. So I told her, you know, maybe we could do a partial or maybe we'd go through and do like a heavy foil and you still have some of your natural in there. Maybe instead of bleaching out your whole head, maybe we just leave out this section underneath and don't even touch that. So we're still bleaching and doing the full service, but we're just really doing from here and above. And that's kind of the decision, the conclusion that we came to, that it's probably going to be around $500, the same as last time. But because I told her we're still going to have to bleach everything, reapply, bleach your roots out, wash, tone, come back, reapply again. Essentially, we're doing two completely different services in one. So that's where the cost of the service comes from. And I just explained all of that to her. So, and that's when I said, but we can do whatever. It's just, you know, whatever you're comfortable with and your decision on what you want to do. So she decided that we're just going to leave out this bottom half and still do the whole thing like on the top half. So I think it's really important to sit down with your clients and talk to them about that kind of stuff because you don't want to come to the end of the service and they're thinking like, oh, my hair's shorter, so it should be less expensive, but it's a completely different service than last time. It still requires a whole bunch of bleach and color and all these different steps and processes or whatever. So that's why the price is still going to be expensive. I know some people are probably going to say, why don't you go through with a high lift, like a 6AA with like 30 volume or something? And I really don't like doing it because I feel like there's no control really of lift. I feel like going through with a permanent color is just going to expose a lot of warmth and have it be too orangey or too caramely. And I know you can tone it down, but I feel like whenever I use a high lift on somebody, like I'm not going to go through with 40 volume and put it on their roots. Or 30 volume even. I don't even like that. So I feel like that's okay to do a high lift if you're gonna go through and foil the hair. But because we're doing it solid, I feel like I just don't like that idea. Also because she has previous like semi-permanent color on her ends from what we did before, I wouldn't want to worry that the ends of her hair aren't gonna lift as good as like the mid shaft, I hate that word, or her root area. So that's why I want to go through and use bleach so that I can be in control of the lift because she wants to be kind of like a level 8. And I just don't ever, I feel like no matter what, if I use like a 6AA or an 8AA, we're still gonna be stuck at like, I feel like a 6 double ash really only lifts to a level 5. I feel like an 8 probably only lifts to a level 6. So I feel like I'm never gonna get as good of lift as I want than if I just were to use bleach anyways. So, sorry, I know this is kind of going on, and if you're not a stylist, then go ahead and skip forward or if you don't care about this kind of stuff, that's fine. So I just wanted to give my kind of idea on that type of thing. Anytime I've used high lift because somebody else recommended it, I've used it and it just didn't work out like it would have if I just would have bleached the hair out in the first place. So that's what we're going to do for the service today. I'm just gonna go through. Also, I want to say I'm usually such a meticulous foiler. Don't feel like if you're doing a service like this, like, don't worry about the detail work and where the foils are gonna lay and how you're foiling this way to make sure you get the money piece, whatever, because we're lifting the whole head. We're not doing anything fancy. I mean, it is a lot of work. We're not doing fancy foil work where it matters exactly how you position the foils or whatever. So that's gonna be something I struggle with today, is just throwing the foils in and not worrying about if they're perfect or not. And also with dark hair, to get good lift, you usually want to do like very thin, fine foils, but because I don't want her to lift to a level 9 or 10, I'm actually going to take thicker sections today that will leave her, I want to lift her probably to like a level 8. That's my goal, 8.5 or so. And then we'll tone down to be like at a 7. So let's mix. I'm going to be using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with, probably to start, just like 15 volume. 10, 15 volume. Okay, bye. Okay, really fast before I get started, I want to show you guys my bowl of bleach that I'm mixing. Some people ask how much to do. So this is my bleach, and you can see it's a pretty full bowl of bleach. That's because I know her hair is very thick, and I'm going to have to use a lot of bleach to saturate. So in this case, I feel like it's okay to overmix and do like a scoop and a half to 2 scoops and heavy on the developer if you need to. That way you don't have to keep going back every like 10 minutes or whatever. Again, charge for every scoop, whatever that you're using. Just know that, you know, this isn't gonna last me an hour. This is probably gonna last me 30 minutes, and then I'll probably remix every 30 minutes to keep my bleach fresh, to make sure that I have like, you know, good lift and everything like that. I don't like mixing a huge bowl and then using that for my whole foil, because then, you know, that could take an hour. By the time you get to the last foils that you're putting in, your bleach is going to be weak and not have much lifting power in it anymore. But because I know her hair is so thick and I'm going to be reapplying, I feel like it's okay to use more bleach, because it's really not going to last me as long as what it looks like it's going to. Okay.
Okay, here's my client's before, and the way that the light is reflecting off of her hair, it does not even go to show you guys how dark her hair is, and I'm trying to show you how thick her hair is. That's just like one handful of hair. With some clients, that would be their whole head of hair in that one handful. So I'm trying to convey to you guys how dark and how thick her hair is. I mean, it's literally massive. So we're gonna start by sectioning off her hair and then work on this back section. And I'm just gonna make sure that she's okay with the amount of hair that we're leaving behind, because ultimately, you know, she wants to stay within her price range or whatever, but I also want to make sure that she's okay with the amount of dark that we're leaving underneath at the nape of the neck.
I just want to have you look at this. So this is the hair that I've set aside that we're not going to do. I kind of did it at an angle, so that way it kind of looks more than just, you know, straight across. So go ahead and just check and make sure that you're okay with how much hair there is left behind. Is that okay? Is that too much? Is it not enough? Is that okay? Okay.
All right, so everything looks good. So we're just going to secure this, and I'm also going to take some deep conditioner and I'm going to apply this just kind of right on top of the hair that we're leaving behind, because I know that I'm going to have some foils that are probably going to slide. We're using a massive amount of bleach, so I want to protect it from bleeding onto this hair. I want to show you guys the consistency of the bleach that I'm using. I'm doing it a little bit thicker just because I want to make sure that we get really great saturation for how dark her hair is and how much lightening that we have to do. So we're just going to start off by taking not really thick sections. I am doing them a little bit thicker than if we were trying to go for blonde. Normally with super dark hair, when you're trying to go for blonde, I do like the thinnest little sections that I can.
but because we're trying to stay in like a level 8 range, and I don't want it to process too fast, I'm going to take a little bit thicker of a section. That way it doesn't lighten up a whole bunch or too fast or whatever. So I'm just going to use my board, and you can see that I'm staying probably within an inch away from her roots. And that's because we don't want to hit the roots yet, because for one, I don't want to start from root to end, because you don't want that to sit on her scalp for so long and then cause irritation. So just to start off, we're going to foil within an inch roughly of her roots and foil all the way through the ends. And this will hopefully lighten up her hair nice and slow, because I'm assuming at this point when I'm applying, this is probably going to be in her hair for 3 hours as I'm doing this full application. So I want to make sure that it's not lightening too much or too fast, because I don't want to have to rinse it out and then disrupt the rest of the service or my application or whatever. So definitely doing a low and slow developer to make sure that we don't get super fast lift and then potentially cause damage. So this is just what we're going to do to start the service off. And I want you guys to pay attention to how thick of a saturation that I'm doing and how much bleach I'm using per one foil. The amount of bleach that I use, you would think that that's going to last me a long time, but actually it really doesn't get me very far. It only gets me about halfway up this back section of the head. I have a lot of people that have a hard time lifting really dark hair, and I feel like it's because it's two things. Your section is too thick, and second, you don't have heavy enough saturation. I've had a few clients that have really dark hair, and they always kind of get stuck at that caramel tone. They've never had a stylist be able to get them to a nice, pretty blonde color in the first session. And I remember one time I was doing this girl's hair, and after processing for about 45 minutes, I went and remixed some more bleach, and I went back through while all the foils were still in her head, and I was just checking every single one of them and reapplying bleach. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I told her that I'm reapplying to make sure that we can continue lifting and get a little bit lighter. And she's like, "I've never had a stylist do that before." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "No, I've never had a stylist go through and reapply bleach." And I was just thinking, like, that must be why people are having a hard time getting good lift with dark hair, because they're not reapplying, or they don't know to reapply, or they feel like, oh, it stopped working. This is the amount of lightness that we can get for this session. But that's not true. If you're kind of stuck at a level 8, don't be afraid if the hair is in good condition to go back through and reapply, just to get it to keep lifting a little bit, get some fresh bleach on there. And use smaller bowls when you're mixing. Don't mix a huge bowl and expect to use that for the whole service. Make sure you're only mixing enough to last you for about 30 minutes. So that way every 30 minutes you can get a fresh bowl of bleach, and to make sure that you're getting nice, even, consistent lift through your whole application. Right here, I just really wanted to show you guys how little that bowl really got me. I really only got these few packets of bleach in because I'm using such a heavy amount of bleach to saturate the hair. So I wanted to show you that one little bowl really didn't get me very far. And I'm going to show you guys throughout the service. This is my first refill, 2 scoops each. And right now where I'm feeling the foils, I just want to see what the temperature is, if it's feeling hot or not, and if it's starting to process. But because we used a lesser developer, it's going to process pretty slow, but I just wanted to double check and see how it was feeling, if it was already starting to feel hot. So that tells me that it's not quite yet feeling warm at all actually at this point in the service, so I know that it's not going to process too fast because I'm not using 20 volume, which normally would start feeling a little bit warm at this point. I'm really not going to make you guys sit here and watch 4 hours of this repetitive application, but I'm thinking I'll show you guys my bowls of bleach and how far I am in my application so you can see exactly how much bleach I ended up having to use and where I was at that point in the service. And you're really not mistaken, that one bowl of bleach really only got me to this back top of the crown area of the head. It really only got me that small little section because we had to use such heavy application. I don't think people realize how much bleach we have to use for these services, and that's why the cost is so much. And I go over the breakdown of the service for the pricing at the very, very end of the video. But just for a heads up, for those of you that don't make it through the end of this video, the extra bowl of bleach cost for this service was roughly $200. That's how much bleach we had to use. And that one tin that I bought at the beauty supply store, which I'm so glad that I bought it, I ended up using practically that whole tin just for this service. Now that this top section is a little bit smaller, I'm just going to start going straight down the middle of the mohawk section. Now I'm on my third bowl of bleach, my third refill, I should say, 2 scoops each plus Olaplex with my first initial bowl of bleach, which would be 4. So that's still literally 8 scoops of bleach. And you can see that it's just this back section right here that I've done, and I still have the whole sides and front left to do. And this is at the point in the service where I realized that I'm not going to do the sides first. I'm going to continue my way down the mohawk section. So right here, I'm actually measuring where how large this size should be, because I don't want to extend beyond the foil, because I don't want any drag and then it's not going to get very good lift. Also, because I'm going to be going through and moving the foils around and kind of pulling the back to hit her roots later on in the service, I want to make sure that they're not pulling or anything. So that's why I'm measuring to make sure that everything's going to fit exactly how I want it as we make our way down the center of the mohawk section. I want to add that at this point in the service is kind of when I want the top to start processing a little bit faster, which is why I decided to start with the mohawk section versus going down through the sides, because the back has been processing for probably almost an hour and a half
maybe 2 hours at this point. So I know we're getting some lift. I've been checking it throughout the whole application process so far. And I don't want this to take too long. So I'm going a little bit heavier when I mix with 20 volume versus like 7 volume, because I want it to pick up and have a little bit more speed and better lift to it, especially because we're on the top part of the head. It's not gonna incubate as much because it doesn't have all that heat from underneath and all the foils laying on top of it. So that's why I'm gonna start on the top versus the sides, because I really want this to start processing. I'm also going to start taking thinner sections, because the thinner the section, the better the lift. However, I'm not going to start taking like super thin baby lights or super thin slices or anything, because I don't want this to get too light. I don't want this to be like a level 9 or 10 or anything. I still want it to be like in the 8.5 range. So deciding like how thin or how thick of slices is going to determine your amount of lift. So also, because we're going to be pulling these foils back and hitting her roots, you want to make sure that you're not doing too thick of sections, because you want to make sure that you can saturate the roots good enough when we go back through at that point of the service. I started working on the front side of my client's face, and at this point in the service, you want to make sure you tell your client to close their eyes, because you're using so much bleach and sometimes it's falling off the side of the board, or sometimes bleach just flings around, you guys. So I made sure to tell her to keep her eyes closed as I was working on this front section, just to be safe. And also, I forgot to mention, but I am now on my 4th bowl of bleach. I just forgot to show you guys when I started my application, but I just did this one foil. So that top section in the back area was my whole 3rd bowl, and now I'm starting my 4th bowl. Here you can see the ends are already pretty light. She's probably like a level 8 through the ends, maybe a level 9, not quite. But she has some of the dark hair kind of going through the ends for where we weaved her bunny piece out from the first service that we did. So because I really want to be cautious of her hair, not create any damage, I'm trying to weave out those little dark pieces of hair, and I'm going to leave all that blonde out. I don't want to overlap as much as possible if I can prevent that from happening. So any of these areas where you can see there's a heavy amount of blonde through the ends, I'm not going to quite yet run the bleach through there. I'm going to wait towards the end of the application, just to make sure that we keep the integrity of the hair and prevent any damage. But we're just going to weave any of those dark pieces out, because again, she really doesn't want any of her natural through the hair at all. So we're just going to try to pick up those pieces as best as we can. Okay, now that we're starting on the sides of the head, I'm just really quickly going to check through the back section and see how those are feeling, if they need to be pulled out. I kind of did a pull test every now and then to see how it feels, if it's feeling stretchy or not, and everything still feels good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start on the side, and I'm going to go from one side to the very next because I want to make sure that we have even lift. And I don't want one side to process faster than the other side. So that's why you'll see me start here, then go to the next side, do another one, go to the other side and switch back and forth. So this is processing. If at any point we need to rinse the foil out, then we can. But if I do one whole side first and then I flip over and do the other whole side, then it would be really hard to rinse out one side versus the next, or I don't want one side to process and get a lot lighter than the other side. So that's why I like going back and forth and making sure that everything lifts at the same exact time. Because if I do like the bottom half of each section, then I can go through and mix another bowl of just 20 volume, or even add a little bit of 30 if I want it to process even faster. But if I do one whole side, then that's going to process faster. Then I'm going to have to go start on the other side, and then that might take a little bit longer to catch up, where I can always rinse out the bottom half, but then I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, it just gets kind of complicated in my opinion. If you do one whole half first and then go to the other half, I feel like it's not going to come out as even, or if you have to rinse out early, then that makes it a little bit harder to do. I'm just going to continue this up the rest of the sides of the head. And then when we get there, I'll kind of let it process for probably like 15-20 minutes or so. And then we'll refresh another bowl of bleach and then start hitting her roots. We're at our 5th refresh of bleach now, and 2 scoops each. So again, this is so much bleach that we're using for this service. And at this point, I'm starting to mix 20 volume and just squirt a little bit of 30 in there just to get it going a little bit more to catch up with the back. All right, so here's her full application, but wait, we're not done. We still have the roots to do. So we're gonna let this sit and process, but I'm gonna check everything just to see how it's going, if anything needs to be pulled out or rinsed out through the ends, because at this point, if we have to end up washing everything out, we can, and then just go hit her roots separately while we wash out all the rest of her hair, do a Olaplex treatment on the ends, but we don't have to. Everything feels okay, so we're just gonna let this continue processing, and we'll just do the roots at the same time.
Okay, so I just let my client process for about 25 minutes or so just to get her ends processing a little bit more. And now we're gonna go through and do some bleach on her scalp. And then I'll check the foils and run through the ends if there's anywhere that needs a little bit more of an extra boost. So that's what we're gonna do right now. And I don't think that I had gone over it yet. So I used total 5 additional bowls of bleach with 2 scoops each. So that equals exactly 12 scoops of bleach total with Olaplex. And the total application took me probably, I wanna say roughly 3 hours or so.
Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm trying to figure out at this point, like, what is the best way to go about her root application, because there are some areas in the ends where she still needs to process a little bit, not a whole bunch, but there is a little bit too much warmth than what we want. So I don't want to pull all the foils out yet. I want to try to keep this as clean as possible. So I decided that I'm going to start in the back. So I'm going to flip everything forward and try to pin it up out of her face. But again, she knows to keep her eyes closed. Okay, so I'm just going to start in this back right here, and I'm going to work my way forward, and I'm going to just hit her roots. And there's a little bit of warmth where the foil line was before from when we first did our application. So I'm going to just kind of bring it down into the line of demarcation just slightly to get rid of that warmth that's there. So I'm going to just hit her roots, and I like the way that it works to do this application with the foils because I feel like it's a lot cleaner. Sometimes when you have bleach through all of the ends, it's kind of hard to like take a comb and like section through it and everything. So when you have everything in a foil, all you have to do is just grab the foil and flip it up and do your application. Because we didn't take anything too large of a section where you have to worry about splitting these foils in half or anything. Everything's already sectioned enough to where we can just like hit the roots, and we know that the saturation is going to be good because our sectioning wasn't too big or anything like that. So I like doing my application this way because it stays nice and clean, and I can flip the foils over the top of her head, and I don't have to worry if anything's gonna really like fall on her face or bleach flapping around or getting messy or whatever, because the foil is containing it. So we're just gonna start doing our root application this way, and at this point I'm only using 20 volume. I don't want to do anything heavier, and I don't want it to irritate her scalp, so that's just what we're going to do at this point. And now that we have that top section done, I'm going to pin everything up to the side. And it's okay if the foils pull and all of that stuff, because for the most part, the ends are contained and processing a little bit more if they need to. The root saturation is good. So it's okay if the foils like move around and slip or whatever. That's not really a big deal. We're not trying to keep anything like in specific placement or anything like that. If it like, it's not going to bleed, it's a full bleach out. So we're just going to continue down the back section of her head, and I'm just going to hit the roots, work my way down. And then on my way back up, I'm just going to double check my work again and make sure if there's anything that I missed that I need to reapply on or anything like that, then I'll make sure to hit it. So we're just going to finish our application right now, and then move on to the sides and do the same thing. And I want to show you this area right here. Remember when we laid deep conditioner down on her hair at the very start of the video? And you can see that the bleach has gotten on there, but it hasn't penetrated through the conditioner or anything like that. So there's no bleeders in this area that we're going to have to retouch or anything. All right, now that we're done applying our root color, I'm going to start at the very bottom, and I'm going to start laying some foils down to insulate the root area. And we're going to start pulling foils out, and I'm kind of checking the ends of her hair. And remember I said at the beginning that there was like a demi-permanent color from where we toned her hair last time. So some of that area is a little bit brassy. It's not bad right now or anything, but you'll see that is just a little bit warmer. Like when we wash her hair out, you'll notice that it's a little bit brassier through the ends, but everything looks pretty good generally. So I don't really have to run any more lightener through it, but I always check to make sure. So right now I'm just going to keep reapplying, double checking my work, and then laying some foils across the top just to make sure that the roots are insulated and processing nicely. And now that we're back up to the very top where we initially started doing our root retouch area, I'm going to start pulling these foils out, but I'm also going to check and see how these how her roots are processing. I'm going to hit them again with some more lightener just to make sure that everything's saturated, it's not drying out or anything. So we're just going to continue this. And also I'm going to start laying some foils across this section too to make sure that everything is insulated nicely and processing as it should. Okay, remember those ends that we left out earlier when we were doing around the hairline? Now is the point of the service where we're going to start running some bleach through the ends, and we're not going to like insulate it fully, but we're going to just kind of leave it out and paint them. That way we can keep an eye on them and make sure that they're not over processing. She probably sat for another 20-30 minutes or so as her roots were lifting. And now we're at the shampoo bowl. We're just going to kind of pull all these foils out as carefully as we can. I swear this gets so heavy, but I just wanted to show you guys the way that she lifted. And she's probably a good level 8, which is exactly where we wanted her.
Okay, so my client just got done processing. We just washed her out. She's sitting at the sink with an Olaplex treatment, so I'm getting ready to formulate for her all over toner that we're gonna do, which I'm not gonna apply at the shampoo bowl. She's gonna be towel dried, but I'm gonna apply it as an actual all over color with sectioning and everything, just to make sure it's accurate and heavy saturation. So our goal, I think we want to be kind of like a 7-8. So what I'm gonna mix with it, I'm gonna kind of throw a whole bunch of random things together. So I'm going to be using like, I think the half of my, like a large percentage of my formulation is gonna be level 8 with like a little bit of 9, just to bump it up a little bit so it kind of keeps a little bit of lightness. I'm gonna use like 7-1 to cool it down a little bit, because we don't want it to be like too warm, especially since she has so much like underlying warmth in her hair right now. I only have a little bit of the 742, and I think that's nice to have like a little bit of beige tones in it. And then the 646, which is like a beige chocolate, and I'm only gonna do like a small little, these two are just gonna be a little bit to add a little bit of the tones in there, not a whole bunch, because they're both beige tones, but one is more of an ashier beige, the other one is more of a chocolatey beige. So in the end, it's just gonna be like a neutral beige. But like I've said before, I don't really carry the full line. I just kind of go with what I have. Like I got the majority of my color earlier thinking that's what I needed. But I'm trying to tweak it a little bit with what I have. So that's why I'm kind of throwing a whole bunch of random stuff together. So the majority of my formulation is going to be like the, probably honestly, the 8 and the 7-1, a little bit of the 9, and then just this, like a smidge of these two. So I know it's kind of confusing, but sorry.
All right, so a little bit of 9, the whole thing of 8, the whole thing of 7-1, and just a little bit of those other two. And here's her hair, pre-toned, nothing at all. I just wanted to show you guys what her lift was without being adjusted. As I'm doing my application, I'm really just trying to focus in the back area and let it process first for a little bit before I go too high up on the scalp, just because I know with some of the videos that I've done in the past where it's been like a cooler caramel tone, it is really scary because it looks like it's grabbing so cool, and then after it's said and done and I wash it out and it's drying and everything, it looks perfect. But that processing time, son of a bitch, if it's not the scariest, moment, because it looks like it's blue, it gives you a heart attack. It's really scary. So I'm honestly applying just this little bit right in here, and I'm going to let it sit for about 15 minutes just because I want to check it and see how the toner is, because when it's underneath, if I need to adjust anything to warm it up a little bit, I always can, but I'd rather just be safe than sorry and just let it sit for a few minutes, make sure that it's processing the way that I want it to, and then we'll finish the application. Okay, so at this point, I let it sit for like 10-15 minutes or whatever. I feel like I'm okay with the way that it's processing. I've kind of pulled the toner off a little bit to check everything in my sections to make sure it's not grabbing too ashy. So I'm going to go through, and I decided that I don't want to have to go back through and do like a balayage. So I'm just going to kind of weave these sections out that you see that I'm leaving behind where I'm not running the color through the ends. And I'm going to keep these aside as my highlights. And here I'm still checking the color because you can never be too cautious when you're dealing with ashy tones and freshly bleached hair that could grab extra porous. So just as before, when with my bleach application, I'm doing the same here where I will do a few sections on the side and then I will flip her to the other side and start painting that side over there. And the reason is because I want to make sure that I'm keeping track of exactly where I'm weaving out the hair to keep it have some blonde pieces in there. I feel like it's really easy to forget exactly what pattern you're doing unless you're doing like a very specific like slice weave, but I never do my coloring that way. I'm never like too patterned out or anything. So for here I'm going through, and then when I flip to the other side I can remember like, okay, I only did like a few sections where I pulled it all the way through the ends, and then I did one in between section that I was keeping blonde. So now I'm going to flip to the other side and repeat the same steps. Guys, if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, it's because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's because it's 1:30 in the morning and I'm trying to do this voiceover because I've done it like sporadically through the day like 5 times, but I can't get it finished, and I have to upload this in a few hours and I want to make sure it's done. And so if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, or if I'm not making complete sense, I apologize. It's because I'm tired, but I love you anyways. So all right, so you can see that I'm pulling aside some of those hairline pieces, and that's because the picture that she showed me, it has a little bit of a money piece, but it's not like super blonde or super bright or anything. But I just want to make sure that I'm keeping track to have that stuff set aside and to make sure that I don't tap it yet, because I don't want it to start oxidizing and going too dark. So I'm going to finish the sides, and then I'm going to hit the mohawk section, and I'm kind of gonna do that a little bit more pattern to be more like highlights, but I'm still gonna tap the root a little bit. That way everything blends really nicely. So you'll see everywhere within this whole application that even though I'm leaving some hair behind, I'm still going through and hitting the roots, and that way everything blends really nicely and everything looks a little bit more natural and more subtle, and nothing ever is going to be too bright. It's just going to be a really soft little difference of a highlight versus super blonde and super bright. Now that I'm at the top of the mohawk section, I'm going to take my sections and be a little bit more patterned. That way I know exactly how much brightness I'm leaving behind, and I want to make sure that it has nice balance. I don't want it to be like super streaky or anything like that. So I'm still going to hit the roots throughout this whole top section, just like the rest of the hair. I want it to have like a nice brightness, but I want it to blend in everything. So there's still going to be like a root shadow appearance to even where the highlights are. So when I do my sectioning, I'm probably going to have like at the most 1/2 inch of like a dark piece, and then I'm just gonna take my next section and do like a weave and have that be like the blonde piece, and then another 1/2 inch of dark, and then a weave again of the blonde, and then so on and so forth until I get to the very front of the hairline. So you'll see me kind of taking turns of pulling the color all the way through the ends and then weaving my next section, and I'm still going to hit the roots. That way everything blends and it looks more like a balayage versus super streaky and stripy straight on the hairline right at the scalp. You know, we don't want it to look super chunky or anything. We still want it to blend a little bit more. So that's why I'm still going to paint the roots even where we're going to leave the blonde and having those pieces staying out. And sorry, my camera angle wasn't very good. So right here, I'm going to show you that I'm just taking a weave of a blonde piece again. And I'm just going to tap the roots a little bit and then split it down the center and pull those blonde pieces directly to the side. That way I can make sure that I'm not pulling them back as I was laying the sections where I run the color all the way through the ends. I pull that straight back, and then you'll see all the blonde pieces that I'm going to preserve the lightness. I'm kind of pulling those down to the side. So this little section, I'm going to run all the color through the ends, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to transfer any of that color onto the other blonde that I've done or that I'm leaving behind. So I'm actually going to put that foil down and put the dark on top of it. That way I make sure that all that blonde stays nice and bright and I don't get any transfer there. So we're almost done with this little section, and we're going to let all this color process probably for like 30 minutes or so.
Okay, so we are toning her lightest blonde, well, not her lightest blonde pieces, but the pieces that we left out from before when we bleached her hair. We had a conversation about it's just really hard to match this color up perfectly for how cool it is, and it's like a fine line between mixing and being still too orange of a caramel tone versus like making it like a nice cool caramel tone. And I asked her, would you rather me err on the side of being too cool of a caramel shade or too warm of a caramel shade? And she said too cool of a caramel shade because it's always going to warm up anyways for how much warm underpigment she has in her hair. However, I feel like it's almost a little too cool. So what I'm toning her hair with right now is Paul Mitchell the Demi, and the reason why is because I feel like it's so translucent. Like, it doesn't ever really tone down highlights so much. Like the Schwarzkopf Agora Vibrance, if I want to cover up hair and like not be able to see highlights or do a really strong shadow root, like I will always go to that. But if I want something that's a little bit softer where you can still see the highlights through a little bit more, then I always go to Paul Mitchell the Demi just because it's so much softer. So to try and add a little bit more warmth back into her hair, I'm using Paul Mitchell the Demi. I'm using basically half and half of the 9NB and 7N. So I'm definitely putting a lot more warmth back into the hair to hopefully, you know, make it a little bit more of a warmer tone, not so cool of a caramel, just a little bit more of a warmer caramel tone. And then I can see that it's not really depositing too much into the highlights. So I just did half and half of this, and I'm letting it sit for probably like 15 minutes.
Adding this toner put just the right amount of warmth back into the hair that we needed. All right, I have to show you guys. This color was literally a perfect match for what she wanted. I was panicking so much, thinking that it was going to be so cool and way too ashy. And actually, it turned out really perfect. It's like the perfect beige tone. It's like a level 8. It matches exactly what she wanted in the picture. And then she felt like it was too light. And she wishes she could go back down to like a level 3. No, I'm not doing that. If you guys didn't catch that, I just wet her down and put some level 5 all over her head and let it sit for about 10 minutes. So here's her before again, and then we will get into her after. Okay, here is her after. I'm definitely happy with the color still. I was a little let down that after working so hard to get her to that perfect level 8 that we were going for, and after stressing out so much about it, I was a little, you know, like, oh, I tried so hard to get that perfect color, but you know, she wasn't happy with it, and I told her if she needed to adjust it, we could. So I'm glad that she left happy, and we just toned it down a little bit, and it still has a really pretty nice lightness to it. It's just not quite as light as we were striving for. You know, it's fine, but I think adding that little bit of dimension made her more comfortable, so I'm really glad about that. So here is the total after, and I think it's still such a really, really pretty color. Okay, so my client just left. I just rang her out, and I'm glad that we added that root shadow of the darker tone because she was definitely a lot happier with that. Oh crap, I have music playing in the background, and if the thing catches on, it will like copyright me. Hold on. I'm just turning the music down for a minute. Okay. So I just rang her out, and if I were to charge hourly, because we technically sat down and talked about her hair at 10:30, it's 6:45 right now. So I think it was over 8 hours. So my hourly rate would have been a little over $800 for that whole service. But I'm nice because I know a lot of people are like, how can you charge that much? So I went through and looked at everything, like how much it would be per service, like per whatever we did for the service. So the way that her service breaks down is so the toner, because we had to do, I basically did an all over color with the toner, so that's 95. The root shadows 55. All the additional solution that we used, because it was basically 12 scoops of bleach total, was 200. Her overall, like, bleaching out her hair was 220. And then the other toner that we used after the all over toner that we did was $30. So all of that total comes out to be $600. So that's what I ended up charging her. And in my mind, when I was thinking, like, I don't know what this is going to come out to be, but I feel like 600 is fair. Like, that's just what I felt like I deserved for the work. I don't think I would have charged her. I mean, obviously I didn't, but I felt like 800 was probably a little bit too high. But I just feel like for the amount of work that we did, how much bleach, Olaplex treatment, how many different toners and all of that stuff that we had to do, I feel like 600 is fair. I know she was really trying to keep her price at like 500, but the fact that we had to go back through and re-add some color, and it added on about an extra hour and a half to the service from doing that root shadow, that's why I ended up charging 600 for the service. So anyways, I hope you guys like the video. It definitely, I wish that we would have left it what the initial color that we first did was, but you know, the client has to be happy. So
Anyways, there's still people in the salon, so I'm gonna turn the volume back up and hope you liked the video. I'll see you next time. Bye.